Today we're going to do my February wrap-up, and those pretty much center around Hyland being kind of a dick, to be heavily medicated to hang out with these people. First of all, it should be criminal not to put the armored bears back in. Today we're going to do my February wrap-up, which is coming to you late because I honestly thought I'd already filmed this. I'm not sure what happened, but I guess I just sat here talking to myself, so let's try this again. I read 14 books in February, and I guess it wasn't that good of a reading month after all, because looking at my stats, I was a little shocked. First up with the genre breakdowns. Now, I always read more romance just because of Valentine's, and I think it's fun, but to see only like one sci-fi and no horror, I don't know what I was doing. There's so many on this shelf, I don't know why I wasn't reading them, but that's okay. What really shocked me was my average rating. My average rating was a 3.19. Honestly, didn't think I was having that bad of a month, but I did struggle in those later weeks, so I guess that makes sense. My breakdown was I had 1 1-star, 3 2-stars, 5 3-stars, 4 4-stars, which is great, and 1 5-star. So let's get into the books, and I'm going to rate them from best to worst. I have figured out how to put chapters down below, so you can skip to the ones that you want to see. At number 1, my only 5-star, we have Berserk Volume 1. My first manga, and it is a banger. This was so much fun, though super violent. All the triggers you can think of are in this series, so do look it up before you try it. However, I had a blast. This is about Guts, the black swordsman who is branded by the forces of darkness who want to drag him down. He's not going willingly. Instead, he's just slashing carnage wherever he goes. The artwork was fantastic. The action scenes were fantastic. I enjoyed the plot, even though this is a bit more set up than I'm sure the other books will be, and I believe it's just going to get better and better. So this could become my new obsession. I've already picked up the second one. At number 2, we have Ender's Game, and this one shocked me. Not because I didn't think I would like it, I just thought it was different than it was. I really pictured, I guess just from the cover, and that it's a space opera, that it'd be your typical space opera, even military sci-fi, but it was much more psychological than I was expecting, and I really enjoyed it. So in this one you have Ender Wiggins, who's a genius 6-year-old who's sent to battle school to train to become the next great general, who will hopefully defeat the alien species that threatens humanity. But instead of focusing on military or strategy or anything like this has a lot more to do with Ender's actual psychology. It's how he feels. It's how the adults around him think he's feeling or how he's thinking. Ender himself is always trying to understand the enemy. So this focuses a lot more on things like guilt, morale, and remorse, which I wasn't expecting at all, but I really, really enjoyed. And it also set up for a great second book, and I'm actually excited to read it. At number 3, we have It Waits in the Forest. This is a YA horror thriller. In this book, you have Selena. She lives on a very small Caribbean island of St. Virgil. In this, she has lost both her parents. To make ends meet, she actually has to become a fake psychic. Now, her mother was really into it and actually believed, but she doesn't. She just kind of goes off of the reputation of her family to make a living. Unfortunately, though, when she starts to meet people who are dragged into these mysterious murders through her job, she's kind of forced into solving these really mysterious deaths, including her own father's a couple years before. And she has to do it with her ex-boyfriend. This does combine some paranormal based on Caribbean folklore, which I really enjoyed. I think the only reason I didn't give this was a 5-star is it is YA and it's not my favorite. It's a bit of a love triangle or a forced love triangle at the start, even though 2 of the characters clearly don't like each other. So I felt like it didn't add anything to the plot, and I just didn't like those scenes with it put in, so I think it could have done without it altogether. However, I still really enjoyed this story, and I actually want to pick up her next book. Number 4 is Spinning Silver. This one is a fairy tale retelling, and it was a lot of fun. You follow 3 main characters. You have Miriam, our main character. She is the daughter of a money lender. Unfortunately, he's very bad at his job. So she takes over and she becomes so good at it that she starts bragging that she can turn silver into gold. Unfortunately, the mystical creatures Stark overhear this, and they make a deal with her. She has to turn their silver into gold for her life. In this mission for her life, she ends up dragging in Wanda, the farm girl who helps her family, and Alina, who is a lord's daughter he's trying to force to marry the Tazar. But the Tazar is hiding some pretty horrible secrets, so the three of them have to work together to end up saving the realm from the Stark and other forces. Lots of good messaging in this book, and I think this is the type of fantasy I like and that I'd like to read more from. She has a couple other books that are kind of in the same realm of retellings, and I'm looking forward to those. Number 5 is St. Catherine's. This was my graphic novel. Absolutely stunning. The artwork definitely carries this book, but I also did like the story as well. It's about Catherine. She is afraid to miss Mass. When she does, she's possessed by a demon. Now, this is pretty light on the horror. The demon is pretty cute, so I think anyone could read this. And this deals a lot more with her personal guilt and her just trying to figure out how to be a good person. Next, we have Just for Summer. I gave this a 3.75 stars. I really liked the writing in this. The writing is fantastic. It does deal with some heavier topics, and I think that was really well done. This is about Justin and Emma. They meet online after they realize that they both have the same curse. Basically, anytime they break up with someone, that person immediately finds their soulmate. So, to break the curse, they decide to meet up and fake date. Now, at first, this relationship is really cute, but as both are dealing with some pretty extreme situations, Emma with a lot of trauma, and Justin with a pretty complicated family dynamic, I thought this was a little heavier than what I thought I was getting into. I really thought I was getting into like a romantic comedy. It's what the title gives, it's what the cover gives, what the first half of the book gets, and although I did enjoy the representation of trauma work in this, I thought it was really well done. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And even though I found Emma's story and how she worked through the trauma super interesting, the relationship itself felt so heavy that at many points in this book I was like, you guys both need to be single. There's no way this can work. You both have to sort out your own issues before you can start anything. And although that's realistic, not what you want to get from a romance. At number 7, we have Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 1, my second manga. This one was really fun. I have watched the anime and absolutely loved the anime. This follows two brothers. They've paid the ultimate price for doing alchemy. One brother has lost an arm and a leg. The brother actually doesn't have a body at all. He's just a soul stuck in a suit of armor. So they are on the search for the Philosopher's Stone, which they believe will help them restore their bodies. This one's clearly just set up, and I know this series will get better. However, I liked Berserk better, and I want to continue reading that one. This one just had a little bit of fluff to it that I felt like we didn't progress very far in, but I'll come back to this eventually. Number 8, we have The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and boy, this ending was so good. It makes me want to be like, can we forget about all the shade I was talking about it? Because I loved that ending. However, it still has problems. That's why I gave it 3 stars. This is about the planet of Lunar, which wants to rebel against Earth and gain its independence, and we follow the revolutionaries who start it with the help of a supercomputer named Mike. As you know, this is the best supercomputer I've ever read about. I love Mike. If Mike was the center focus of the story, this would be a 5-star, this would be a favorite. So I do get how this is some people's top sci-fis ever. It did have some pretty big issues for me, and in general they just stem from Robert Heinlein's writing and his views on women. He has some pretty concerning lines in a few of his books I've read towards women that I'm not the biggest fan of. Also, in every single book, he has a character that kind of is a mouthpiece for his own ideologies, and I typically don't love those characters, and unfortunately I felt like our main character in this one was that character, and I didn't enjoy him. I also thought that the writing of this was a little bit clunkier than his other books. I feel like it might be because our main protagonist is supposed to be very smart, but not school educated. So I felt like that's why the writing was that way. Also, there's some like lunar slang in here that I didn't like either. It just didn't work for me. As much as I love Mike, as much as I loved that ending, I had to give this a 3. At number 9, we have Pardon My Frenchie. This one was a really cute romance. This one is about Enchante and Thad. They meet when their 2 doggies fall in love daycare, and they actually go super viral. So viral that they get to go to New York and kind of do the social media networks. They go on podcasts, they go on Today's Show to talk about their dogs, and of course, they fall in love. Really cute story. There's not much depth to it, I would say, but it was fun. I would recommend this one. At number 10, we have a short story collection. We have A Manual for Cleaning Women. This one is highly regarded, so even though I gave it 3 stars, I do recommend checking it out if you like short stories. However, for me, even though the writing is phenomenal, this was a really heavy read, and to me it started to feel a bit trauma dumpy. But it also just deals with something I personally don't like reading about. But it's pretty heavy with alcoholism, and that's partly to do with the fact that the author herself really struggled with it throughout her life. So, of course, a lot of the stories are going to center around that. It's just a personal thing that I don't enjoy reading it. Number 11, we have It's Not My Name. This was a YA thriller. This one was about a girl who wakes up with amnesia. She doesn't remember her name. She has no memory. And then you have a young teenager who is looking for his missing girlfriend. This one was fun. I really enjoyed the twist. However, you do have to shut off your brain. That's why it gets a 2.5. Because this does deal heavily with the trope of like all the adults are completely useless. Like some of the things for this story to set up would just never happen if people did their jobs. So if you go into this with that knowledge, I think you'll enjoy it, but it's not groundbreaking. At number 12, we have Jamaica Inn. And boy, was this a big disappointment. I really wanted to like this. Like, I love gothic classics, and she does nail the atmosphere of this book. Like, the setting is perfect. The moodiness is perfect. However, the plot just falls pretty short. This is about Mary Yellen. After her mom passes away, she moves in with her aunt and uncle at Jamaica Inn. However, everyone, once she gets there, warns her not to live there, and something dark and mysterious is happening there. Unfortunately, Mary Yellen is pretty useless in this story. She doesn't affect the plot at all, and she has no agency. She doesn't figure out anything that's happening. Everything's told to her. Any action she takes is basically useless because other characters are already doing things that have much more impact to the story. So if you took her out, not much would change from this story. And I just don't like that. I'd much rather her have at least figured something out or something, like some of her action had any impact. So that's why it fell short for me. Number 13, we have Happy Place, which I gave 2 stars, and I did not like a single character in this book. I would need to be very heavily medicated to hang out with these people. This book actually gave me massive anxiety. This is about a couple who's actually broken up but now has to fake date on their yearly trip with their friends because their friends are throwing a surprise wedding and they don't want to ruin it. If you love miscommunication and being with a friend group that hates each other, this might be the book for you. It is rife with passive aggressiveness and people just not having conversations they could have to solve their problems right away. I didn't like anyone here. Kind of left wondering, what romance? I actually understand why this couple broke up. They're incapable of communicating with each other. I think the main male character gives absolutely nothing. I think he's completely emotionally unavailable. He says very little, and I don't see enough of a change, especially not in 3 days, to warrant a relationship or to root for this relationship. I also absolutely hated the ending as well. I do want to like an Emily Henry book. I do think she's a good writer, so I guess I'm going to keep trying, but this one didn't do it for me either. At number 14, we have Subtle is the Knife, which, if you don't know, is the second book in the Dark Materials. This one is The Golden Compass, and this one I just didn't like at all. That's why I gave it 1 star. First of all, it should be criminal not to put the armored bears back in, but also it wasn't subtle at all. It is very heavy-handed in its messaging. I thought Lara was downgraded from main character to annoying little sidekick, and it just didn't give me any of that whimsy, adventure, and fun of the first one. I do own the last one, so if you think I should give it another chance and finish the series, let me know. Those are all the 14 books I read this month. I'm hoping I have a much better reading experience in March. Like I said, I've already started 2, and it's going much, much better. As always, if you have recommendations, leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next one.